We are delighted to have Dr. Christine Whelan speaking with us today. She's going to be presenting on consuming happiness, research and application. Your motto is not for school, but for life we learn. So Dr. Whelan teaches class on consuming happiness, belonging and purpose, and finance and families. She is the author of 4 applied research books, including The Big Picture, A Guide to Finding Your Purpose in Life. Dr. Whelan has been published in the New York Times and Washington Post and USA Today, among many others, and is a frequent guest on national and local television and radio. So we are just very happy that you could come and speak with us today. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi there. Hello. So I have a couple ideas about how we can do this, because I would love this to be more of an interactive talk if you're up for it. Now, if that terrifies you, I can talk at you as well. So my name is Christine Whelan, and I am known at UW as the happiness professor. No pressure. And I also am at Emory University these days in Atlanta, long story, where I am known as the purpose professor. So somewhere along the line, I really became interested in what makes life worth living. And I can tell you that I really became interested in this kind of like as an angsty teenager, and then I never stopped. I wrote my PhD dissertation on self-help books in the United States. Now, I had the honor of attending Oxford University. So all of my classmates were studying like real stuff, like Chaucer and, I don't know, history and stuff. Meanwhile, I was reading self-help books because I have always believed, and I still really deeply believe this, that when we understand what makes life worth living for everyday people, then that's where the research really needs to go. Because publishing research in academic journals that nobody reads doesn't really get the rest of us very far. So how does all of these ideas, how do they translate into things that all of us can use in our everyday lives? So that's really been my background. And also I wanted to know whether any of these self-help books worked. The answer is yes, they will work, but nobody really wants to follow any of them because most of the advice is challenging for anybody to follow. It's much easier to write than it is to actually follow. All right, so my motto comes from Seneca, not for school, but for life we learn. And what I basically mean by that is that I'm really interested in taking academic research outside of the classroom and into groups like this, into everyday life, so we can put it into action. I am particularly interested in this idea of happiness, because happiness is a word we hear a lot, and yet one that it's very hard to pin down a definition for. So what I thought we might do today is talk about really like the definition of happiness and talk about its intersection with money. These are 2 questions that like everybody's like, oh man, we went from happiness now to money. These are these 2 big topics in our lives, right? Does more money equal more happiness? And in fact, if you can put them together, can you buy happiness? Spoiler alert, I believe you can if you know how to spend your money right. And it's not the way people normally would encourage you to spend your money. All right, so let's begin with this idea of what is happiness. Do you want to shout out some words? What are some synonyms in your mind for happiness? How would you define happiness?
Peace.
Peace, excellent.
Being settled.
Settled, lovely.
Tranquility.
Tranquility, oh, I see a theme going here. Excellent, okay. What about some other definitions of happiness?
Bringing joy.
Joy, yes.
Grandchildren.
Oh, yay. That's wonderful. Grandchildren, okay. All right, now, even in just those synonyms and word associations for happiness, you see something interesting, right? The difference between peace and grandchildren, that's a big spectrum. I have 5 kids of my own, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, and 2 17-year-olds. And I can tell you that, at least for me as a mother, peace and children don't always go together. So I don't know, maybe peace and grandchildren go together better. But, but peace and children are sort of different definitions of happiness. But they are definitions of happiness, right? They are ways that we can define happiness. So one of the challenges with defining happiness, of course, is that it encompasses many, many things, right? It's a diverse topic. You know what the other challenge of happiness is? The world is a really difficult and painful place. Now, all sorts of philosophers knew this. I mean, you can go back to the story of Job in the Bible. I mean, people have known for centuries that the world is a painful place. It is not always full of sunshine and light all the time. And I'd be really interested. So I can tell you that my grandmother would never have told me that the purpose of life is to be happy. She would never have said to me, "Oh, Christine, I just want you to be happy." Do you have a sense, would your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, if you knew them, would they have prioritized happiness as their goal in life? I'm seeing a lot of heads shake, right? I don't think that they would. According to the research, they wouldn't have. Because in previous generations, we had much more of an acknowledgement of the idea that the world is a painful place. And we basically saw happiness as a byproduct of living a life of meaning, of fulfilling our social roles, of doing the things that we feel like we ought to do, right? And so if you meet your responsibilities, well, that by definition is a happy life. Sometime around the 1970s, well, actually, it was between the 1950s and the 1970s that social survey research says that things began to change. People began to identify happiness as much more of an individualistic pursuit, and the idea that we, in fact, deserve as individuals to be happy, and that happiness should be our highest goal in life, that pursuing happiness should be our highest goal, our individual happiness. That was really a seismic change in terms of American cultural discourse. And this gets back to my PhD in the self-help literature, because you can really see how individualistic self-help books got us there. Began telling us that, you're doing too much for others, you really need to focus on you. Are you happy? In fact, are you the happiest you can be? Could you be happier? And all of a sudden, we had a national obsession with happiness. And by the way, it was a national obsession that ended up being a little bit of a blame the victim culture, because the more you focus on whether or not you are happy, the less happy you become. So, Aristotle had some definitions of happiness that somewhat bypassed this. All right, he defined happiness in two different ways. And in the comments from you kind of defined happiness in these ways as well. There's the idea of hedonic happiness, of fun, of pleasure, of the excitement of life. Hedonic happiness is wonderful. Then he has the idea of eudaimonic happiness. And eudaimonic happiness is that quieter kind of happiness, when you talked about peace and tranquility, potentially even grandchildren, and these all fall under the idea of eudaimonic happiness, of a sense of a life well lived, right? Now, it is not that you have to choose one or the other. I always tell my students that I wish them a life of eudaimonic happiness with a lot of hedonic happiness along the way, right? So it's not that you have to choose one or the other, but if your entire life is the pursuit of hedonic happiness, of just one hit of pleasure after another, it may, well, research doesn't even suggest, research can tell you it is going to feel empty. The sense of meaning, the sense of purpose, the sense of a life well lived that we humans seek really comes from eudaimonic happiness. And so what we want is a balance. We want to live meaningfully and have fun along the way. Now, Aristotle's awesome, but he's not really making all the headlines these days, and there have been enough self-help books written about his work. So we have other modern formulas for happiness as well. One modern formula for happiness is to take Aristotle's idea and say pleasure, so fun stuff, plus satisfaction, meaning that you feel good about the fun stuff that you've chosen, equals happiness. That's an okay formula. That is really a possibility. The thing about this, though, is again, it's always also focused on the individual, right? Are you satisfied as an individual? Are you happy as an individual? If we go back in time again, this time to the Aztecs actually had a very different approach to happiness and a very different definition of happiness. Rather than having it be a formula of this plus this equals happiness, the Aztecs saw it as a balance. The Aztecs saw happiness as not even about joy, not even about like all the positive things, but about the duality of the positive and the negative, about the joy and the pain. The idea that joy is that much sweeter when you know tough times as well. So they talked about duality not just of inside themselves, but duality of nature, duality of body and mind. And they really saw that things as a balance. And as we know in our lives, there have been times of great joy, and there have been times of really great pain. Right? And so to see a life well lived and a happy life actually as a balance of those, I think is kind of a beautiful way of accepting the tough times as well. So, I would like to do an experiment on happiness with you, but I realize that I have not handed out pencils or pens. Do we have like 10 pencils that I might be able to borrow? Trust me, this is fun. Trust me. Oh, good. Okay, I'm going to grab some pencils here.
They're not full.
Oh, it doesn't. That's okay.
Okay.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. All right. Here we go. Now, if any of you have pencils or pens of your own, you can use them for this. You can use a pencil or pen of your own. Yes, do you have a pencil or pen of your own? All right. So, there has been a fair amount of research on happiness. In fact, there's been so much research on happiness that researchers have decided to do some very silly experiments along the way. Now, have you heard that line, if you put a smile on it, like, the whole world smiles with you, as the song goes, right? All right. So researchers wanted to study this. And the way they decided to study this was to have people put a pencil between their teeth. Like so. Okay? Now, the thing about this is that you have to put it between your teeth, not between your lips. Because if you put it between your lips, you're frowning. Nobody likes a frown, right? Okay, so you have to put it between your teeth, okay? Now, when you put it between your teeth, what you end up doing is forcing a Duchenne smile, okay? And the research on Duchenne smiles says that, if you just kind of force a smile, then, you become happier. All right, so here's the way it works. You put the pencil between your teeth, and you smile, okay? You go, okay, Now, are you happier? I don't know. Probably not, right? All right, here's what I'd like you to do, though. Look around at each other. Yeah?
Are you really funny?
When you look around at each other. Now, are you happier? Yes, I bet you are. So, the research on the Duchenne smile traditionally has people looking at a cartoon while they have the pencil between their teeth. And the idea is that they will think the cartoon is funnier when they have the pencil between their teeth. I used to teach this research all the time, but I began to notice something in my classes. And what I noticed in my classes was that the biggest laugh came when I said, oh, you guys should all look around at each other. And then everybody started laughing, and everybody was in fact happier. Why? it wasn't the pencil and it wasn't the Duchesne smile. It was the community. It was the togetherness. It was the silliness of doing something in a group. And that, to me, became a really important message about the true definition of happiness. So research does back that up. When we think about what makes us happy, it's not money, it's the quality of our relationships. You guys know that. This is kind of news to my students because, you know, when you're in your 20s, it's all about acquisition. But as we realize what really brings us joy, we realize it's people, it's relationships. The quality of our relationships is the biggest predictor. And by the way, that means doing things in person. So it's really good that you are here, like truly. And it's wonderful that the new senior center is being built such that more people can come together and the community can come together as well. That is super important in terms of building community and thus building more happiness and well-being. I wanted to talk just for a second, if you'll let me, about my new kind of obsession. So it is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and of our nation. You know, it's our big birthday. So I have been reading a lot about the Declaration of Independence. Now, I was already pretty interested because, as we all know, there is that famous line about the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, we misunderstand that line so badly because we don't, so first of all, life, liberty, and the pursuit of property was the traditional line. And in the Declaration of Independence, they chose not to use the word property because there were slave connotations and because there were more individualistic sort of acquisition connotations. And the founders really believed that America was about building a community and giving voice to people, not about how much property you owned, but about the ability to pursue happiness, to learn, to grow, to have a voice. Now, this is my new bit of learning. In the National Archives version of the pursuit of the Declaration of Independence, there is a period after the sentence, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Did any of you hear this on NPR last week? Okay, or like 2 weeks ago. This is just amazing to me. So apparently, that period is not supposed to be there. It was added by a printer who added it at the last minute. Well, actually, he added it because the sentence seemed like a run-on sentence, and he was a good journalist. And he wanted to put a period there, and he wanted to beat everybody to press to get his version out so that his version would be more popular. Okay, so this was not the official version. This was sort of like the bootlegged early version of the Declaration of Independence. And he cut the sentence in half and put a period. And there are historians now who are really upset about this. Now, this is the sentence from the Declaration. You don't have to read it. You probably know it already. But here is, all right. So the reason why this matters becomes clear when you read the beginning and the end together, which I had not done until the last couple of weeks. All right. So these unalienable rights, meaning like this is who we are as people, as individuals, okay? And that we have them, not the powers that be have them, but that we have them. Okay, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All right, so you see that period. But what the National Archives has now done is put these dashes here to show that there is some debate about this period. Because what it is setting up is this list of things that because we have these unalienable rights, we need to have these just powers and the consent of the governed, that we have the right of people to alter and abolish the government. But here, it goes down at the bottom. Laying its foundation on such principles as organizing its powers in such form, so we're talking about the government, as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. When we get rid of that period, what you end up seeing is that the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not a singular thing for the individual, but a call to action for us as a country, a call to action for us as a community. And it is a way more sort of we-oriented approach to happiness than a me-oriented approach to happiness. And I got really excited about that because, as we all know, the me approach to happiness has not worked out very well for a lot of us. So this we approach to happiness is much better. Now, if you have all these different definitions of happiness, fine, that's all kind of academic, maybe. But what are we going to do with it? Well, what we're told by our culture is to make as much money as we can. That money is the secret to it all. So does more money equal more happiness? In the academic literature, there is an ongoing debate about this question. In the 1970s, a guy named Richard Easterlin said that there was a paradox, that up to a certain point, more money does make you happier. But once you meet basic needs, more money does not make you more happy. And this was kind of accepted for a long time, until researchers began to push on it and said, now, wait a second. What about whether it's how you spend your money? Because people who have more money could actually spend it in a way that would maximize their well-being. It was the assumption that we would always spend our money on things and stuff that wouldn't make us happy. So to sort of ask this question of does more money make us more happy? My sort of contrarian approach is to say, yes, more money can make you more happy if you know how to spend it right. So what you want to do is avoid two big pitfalls, all right? So the first pitfall, I always love this image, is the hedonic treadmill. Oh, we know about the hedonic treadmill. In fact, we have all been on it at some point in our lives. We may have one as a clothes hanger downstairs in our house, gathering dust. All right, so the hedonic treadmill is the idea that just as you run on a treadmill, you're putting in all this energy, and you're standing still, well, the same thing is true when we are trying to compare ourselves to others and acquire more and more and more things in hopes that we will finally be happy if we have this car, this house. If we are admitted to this club, we will finally be happy. And it's never enough. The carrot is always sort of hanging out there in the distance, and we just keep running. So the hedonic treadmill when it comes to money and happiness is as incomes rise, the problem is we get used to what we have. It does not bring us the same amount of happiness and joy, so what do? We need more, okay? And it just keeps going and going and going. So this leads us to perhaps another formula for happiness. What you have divided by what you want. This is one of these wonderful things where you could increase the numerator or you can increase the denominator. You can decrease the numerator, you can decrease the denominator. You actually have the choice in this formula. So you can either increase what you have or you can decrease what you want. And all of a sudden, what you have becomes bigger. So then perhaps a formula for happiness is around managing your expectations and getting off the hedonic treadmill. The reason to do this is because materialistic values are not going to make you happy. We probably intellectually know this, but we've got to know this in the core of our being. Here's the way it usually works. You think, I think, we all think if we are on Instagram and scrolling on various platforms, that if we have enough stuff, or fame, or money, or power, well, then people will like me. And really all we're ever going after is this sense of I am enough, I am loved, do people like me? And then if we have that, then we decide that we're going to be happy. But guess what? It doesn't work that way. having more stuff, fame, money, and power does not lead you to happiness, because what it sets you up on is what academics call the loneliness loop. Here's how it goes. I believe we've all felt this at some point in our lives. I know I have. So you're feeling anxious about whatever it is you're feeling anxious about. You're feeling lonely, and maybe you're feeling isolated. Maybe you're feeling alone. And that makes you more anxious. So what do you decide to do? Well, the thing that we probably should do is to reach out to somebody else. But do we do that? No, we kind of pull the covers over our head and grab our phones. Or we grab our phones not just to scroll, but to shop. Or we go out into the stores themselves and shop. The idea is that we try to shop because we're going to engage in retail therapy. We think that we can buy something that is going to make us feel better. And guess what? When we buy the thing, it actually might make us feel better for a half second, right? You get that surge of, ooh, bright shiny object, I like this. Oh, look at me, I'm very happy. But then does the new handbag actually form a relationship with you? Does the new tech gadget talk back to you? Well, these days maybe it does. But how can we really buy something that is going to make us feel less lonely? Probably not. And then we feel even more isolated. We feel even more anxious because we have tried and failed, and the loneliness loop begins again. So you don't want to prioritize materialistic values. You don't want to be on the hedonic treadmill. You kind of know this, but how do we do this? How do we actually buy happiness? And this gets to one of my favorite old-timey topics that is so misunderstood in our culture, and that is the concept of thrift. If you want to laugh, you should ask a bunch of teenagers to define thrift. Feel free to use this at your next family gathering. Ask them to define thrift. What they will tell you is that thrift, first of all, they're going to tell you it's a thrift store. It's a place to shop. They're going to tell you it's a place to shop. After they tell you that, they're going to say maybe it's about being stingy, right? It's about not spending your money. As you hopefully know, that is not true. But you probably don't know the true definition of thrift. The true definition of thrift comes from the root thrive, which is also used for plants, is also used for growing all sorts of things. It's also used for us as individuals, not having to do with money. It is about making the wisest use of all that we have, not just money, but of time and of energy and of social resources to promote our own flourishing and the social good. This is what the founders were getting at when they were talking about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is what we really hopefully should be thinking about when we think about this intersection of money and happiness. How can we use our resources, all of them, in a way that helps our own flourishing and that of the social good? So being thrifty means spending in keeping with your values. Are you spending your money in ways that are meaningful to you? This is easier said than done. One way to think about this is to think about what you value. And so I am going to pass out some handouts, because what I have done over the years is really embraced those Mad Libs. Remember those Mad Libs? The idea of just putting words together and then seeing how they kind of all fit together. Well, a Mad Libs approach to this is to say, how can I break down these big concepts of happiness and well-being and money into small steps so that I can actually make a commitment to do this in my everyday life? Because research finds that when you break down big, daunting topics into smaller steps, it kind of becomes not just manageable, but almost like a really kind of pleasurable exploration of possibilities in your life. So the first question here is, what do you value? Now, you have many values. You do not have to does not have to be the values that guide your entire life. But let's talk about this week. Let's talk about this week in terms of maybe where you would spend your resources. Now, again, remember, resources is not just money. It's time and energy and your volunteering and all of that, all right? So what are some values that you would like to have guide you this week as you think about how to spend your resources? If you need a list, I have one. I'm just going to tell you there are a lot of words on this slide because there are a lot of possible values. This values list comes from a guy named Shalom Schwartz. He studies universal values worldwide. And this is only a sampling of them, I will tell you. But this will just give you a sense of what a value is in this context. As you scroll through this, you might notice a couple things. First, if you're like me, you might notice that you're like, hey, I like a lot of these. I'll take all of them. Thanks very much. Right? And narrowing it down is hard, but we can't prioritize all of them. The second thing you might notice is that happiness is not on this list. Why? Happiness is not a value. It's a byproduct of living your values. It's what happens when we use our resources in keeping with our values to do good things in the world. So pick a couple values, and then you can write them down on your worksheet. If you want to do it now, you can. If you want to do it later, you can. It's up to you. I have come up with my own formula for spending resources in keeping with your values. And I really think about it as purposeful spending for happiness. The idea of thinking about what your gifts are, what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, what your values are, what you care about, and then who you want to positively impact, what causes, what ideas, what individuals you want to positively impact. And when you put that together, it really becomes something that you can take action on. How can I use my gifts in keeping with my values to make a positive impact on the people and causes I care about most? Yeah? You'll see that in your little worksheet there as well, that it's basically built around that. So we talked about values. But the way that we can do this in terms of building your own purposeful consuming happiness statement is to think of the 3 values that you'd like to guide you this week, next week, whenever it would be. The joyful activities that you would like to prioritize, right? And those joyful activities really are based on your gifts, right? What things that you do that you're good at that bring you joy, that you can share with the world, that also enrich you. And then who are you going to make time for? Who do you care about? Who do you want to positively impact? And that who can also be a what in terms of a group, an idea, a cause. It can also be an individual. Relationships matter, and as we have seen already, pro-social behavior, even when it's just putting a pencil between your teeth and looking around at each other in a crowd, can really boost happiness and well-being. And these values that you have will really guide your choices. They'll guide, all of our values always guide our choices of how we spend our time, our money, our energy. We often don't think about them front and center, but they really do guide the choices that we make. And so how can we really do joy, right? Can we value this idea of a pro-social, proactive joy and happiness in our lives? Now, here's another terrifying slide with too many words on it. But again, it's a pick list. It's a pick list. In case you wanted to know about some strengths and activities that help you find joy, you can choose from this list, but I bet you can come up with many of them yourselves. What are the things that you do that bring you joy? Now, I love this list because it comes from my friend and colleague, Richard Leiter, and he writes books on purpose and meaning formation, especially for older adults, and the sort of what's next post-retirement. And so he and I have worked together for many years. We've started working together at AARP's Life Reimagined about, oh my gosh, maybe 13, 14 years ago now. And this is one of his lists, which is great because it's a very sort of active list of all the skills that you might have that could bring you joy. So, you can write down a couple of those. And then we come back to the final part of this little Mad Lib statement, which is that relationships matter and purpose is pro-social. So, pro-social is just the fancy academic word for saying that, you know, relationships matter. And when we do things not just for ourselves and our own benefit, but for the benefit of others, it can benefit us too. There was a wonderful parable of a teacher who wanted to teach pro-social behavior to her students. And so what she did was she had them all write their names on a balloon in Sharpies. And all these little third graders were told to throw their balloons down the hallway. And you can imagine a bunch of third graders throwing balloons down a hallway. And what a disaster and a mess this was, right? And she says, okay. Now, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Go find your balloon. All the kids go nuts, right? They're running down the hallway. They're elbowing each other out of the way. You know, it's a whole thing. And she calls time, and nobody's got their balloon. They're all upset about it. She says, okay, all right, fine. We're going to do something a little different. Now, I want you to go find the balloon that is nearest to you and see whose name is on it, and then give it to them. You have 30 seconds. Go. In under 30 seconds, everybody had their balloon back. And the teacher said, now students, you see what happened here? When you were looking for your own balloon, your own happiness, it was pretty hard to find. But when you started looking for someone else's, well, not only did you help them find their balloon, their happiness, but someone else gave the happiness that you were seeking to you. And, you know, it's kind of cheesy, I know. But I love this story because we all probably can think of times in our lives when we thought what we were doing was helping someone else. And then we came out of it realizing that we ourselves became happier and felt better as well. So you can think about who you might want to positively impact. I put this list up. This is sort of a silly list because you have so many causes, ideas, and individuals in your life that you probably want to impact. But you can think about, you know, any of these as well. And you can write those on your consuming joy list. Because really what I'm encouraging you to do is to make a leap, right? Is to really prioritize this kind of happiness and joy in your life. I love this photo because I have anthropomorphized this fish for years. What is this fish thinking? Okay, on the one hand, first of all, why is this fish jumping? Is the fish pushed by pain? Is the water salty? Is it hot? Is it pulled by possibilities? That looks lovely and cool over there, right? Or maybe there's more food. Yeah, who knows? We have no idea why the fish is jumping, but you know what we do know? The fish is in midair, and right now it's saying, oh my goodness, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. It is freaking out. The reason I love this is because I have been this fish. You have been this fish. We have all been this fish at some point in our lives when we are going to try to make a leap in some way. And what I'm encouraging you to do today is to take the leap, because you deserve to have a life of joy and pro-social, relationship-based fulfillment. And when we think about happiness that way, well, that's how we can pull it together in a way that I think really should encourage all of us to take that leap. So you have this handout, and this is the idea. So I will spend my time, talent, and treasure in keeping with my values of. This week I will prioritize a joyful activity like to promote my own thriving and the well-being of, and then you can put in the people that you want to positively impact. I think our founding fathers would be very happy with this definition of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if I may say so myself. This is my week. And it's just to show you that it doesn't have to be like hugely big. This is only 1 week. This is only 1 week. You could do it for the day. You can do it for a month. But you know, the things that matter to me are my family. I've got a husband. I've got 5 kids. I've got a dog. I am, in fact, going on a girls' weekend this summer, which I am very excited about. See, that's prioritizing friendships. And I am continue to work with my students. So does this change the world? No. But is it a declaration of the things that matter to me and putting them into action in the world? Yeah. Would I have done this even if I did not fill out a little worksheet like this? Maybe, probably. I probably would have. However, by doing this exercise, I am giving myself credit for these positive actions. And that's the other invitation to you. You do so many purposeful, wonderful things in your world. Give yourself a little bit of credit. Allow yourself to feel some joy for those things that you do. So, I did not define happiness for you. I gave you like 9 different possible ways to define happiness for yourself. A true professor, right? You get to define happiness for yourselves. But know that it is more likely to come your way in a pro-social behavior. Does more money equal more happiness? Not if you're buying things, but if you use increased money on relationships, on pro-social behavior, on the things that matter most to you, yes, more money can buy more happiness. And how to do it? Well, you think about others. You use your gifts in keeping with your values to make a positive impact. To me, that is absolutely the secret to consuming happiness. And quite frankly, as far as I know, it's the best secret to life in general. So I am excited to take any questions that you have, to nerd out about any more of these topics. And if you would like to listen to more of me, the thing that I did that has actually gotten the most publicity and the most readership or listenership is this Audible original 10 lecture series that I did on purpose and meaning formation, and there's a lot on happiness in there as well. What is so cool about it is that it is just like this talk. I narrated it myself, but you can pause it at any time without worrying about being rude. So it is. It was an AP bestseller. It is featured on American Airlines right now, which I did not even know until it went up at the end of last summer. Somebody emailed me and was like, your book is like one of the first 5 Audibles featured on American Airlines, Christine. It's very exciting. So it's out there, and if you have Audible, it's just 1 credit. And if you don't, it's free so that they can rope you in. Anyway, but I will leave it there, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have, or if you wanted to share your own thoughts about this, I'd love to learn from you as well. So yeah, thank you.
So why do you think it is popular on an airplane, on an airline, instead of a mystery or a whodunit?
So I believe that these ideas are popular popular in general because self-help is a really popular thing to listen to, because you can listen to it while you're doing something else. I would love to tell you a story I could just make up right now to explain it. What if, because those are always really fun, what if maybe it's more popular on airlines because people are coming back from a vacation with their families and they're searching, or they're going to a vacation and they're searching for happiness and purpose and meaning? Ooh, or what if it's more popular because it's business travelers who are questioning being away from their families? Oh, we could tell all sorts of stories. The answer, of course, is I have no idea. But we could tell all sorts of stories about why it would be popular on an airline. And I would love American Airlines to give me more data on the downloads and who listens to it. But I can tell you that it's been very popular on Audible because people really like listening to this kind of inspirational but also research-based stuff, and that's what the lecture series is. So yes, it's been great. I mean, truly, I published 4 books before that with Simon & Schuster and all these big, I mean, my first book launched on Good Morning America. Like, I've published some really big books that have like sold no copies. And then this thing that I did, you know, just as a throwaway kind of thing during the pandemic. I filmed it during the pandemic. We were all in masks. They put me in a little soundproof room to do, it was all, this is the thing that has totally taken off. So you never can tell. Any other questions on, yes, go ahead.
Not a question, but another thing that's similar to yours.
Yeah.
Is the Healthy Minds app from Richard Davidson at the University of Madison.
Absolutely.
Do you know about that?
I do, and in fact, I work with the Center for Healthy Minds and Richie Davidson's group. I'm a fellow there or something like that, and I worked with their app when it started, when it was just getting off the ground, and talked about that. So yes, the Center for Healthy Minds app is fabulous because it first of all has a lot of these assessments that you can do around happiness and well-being as you start. It's totally free, and it is used to both give you really useful information about purpose, about meditation, about calming your mind, about pro-social behavior, all these things, and it's really useful for research because your interactions with it and your feedback and the growth that you have then is important in terms of future research and future growth of these kinds of things. So yes, thank you for mentioning that app. It's a lovely app, and it's very impressive because there are many happiness apps out there that have not done well, that have and this one has not only done well but really done well for many years. Yeah. Well, if you have any more questions, you can always reach out to me because off my website there is a contact form. And yes, so as I always say to my students, I wish you a lifetime of eudaimonic happiness with a lot of hedonic happiness along the way, all in a way that is pro-social for all of us, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in this 250th anniversary year.